Hey guys, Katie here. Welcome back to another video. This is going to be something different than anything I've done in a while, that is. I did a part 1 of this video back in 2015, so almost 5 years ago actually, and it is like a story time sort of video about my blood phobia. So what I'm going to talk about in this video might trigger some of you if you have what I have, and that is essentially a irrational fear of blood, needles, and you tend to faint maybe when you see blood or hear people talk about blood, or maybe you faint and pass out when you get shots. The whole spectrum. I deal with a lot of this, and I have for my entire life. And I'm doing this video to kind of just chit chat and give you an update on you know, where I'm at now when it comes to this phobia, and also just tell you a few stories of things that have happened to me over the past year or last year, give you some updates, and also reconnect with the community that the last video I did sort of built. If you go to the last video that I did do a few years ago, I noticed that it has quite a few views, but also a ton of comments from people who struggle with the same thing I struggle with. I want to give a trigger warning to anyone watching this. If you have like a blood phobia, or you don't like hearing about medical situations, needles, things like that, I'm going to be talking about those things in this video. It's kind of ironic because the people who I want to watch this might also be triggered by the things I'm talking about, but just know that I'm going to try to keep it as, like, you know, simplistic as possible and not get too much into detail. I could talk about these things and not get lightheaded, but if I hear someone else talk about them, sometimes it will set me off and get me, you know, lightheaded or whatever. Just want to say that this is me telling you I'm still not over this blood phobia of mine, or whatever you want to call it. I still struggle with it, and it definitely still affects my life, and I'm almost 25 years old. Let's start by saying what the definition of what I have is, and I believe I have hemophobia. But I also am afraid of like medical stuff and needles, not just blood. But hemophobia is an extreme irrational fear of blood. Severe cases of this fear can cause physical reactions that are uncommon in most other fears. Specifically vasovagal syncope, which is fainting. It's like the medical term for fainting. And yeah, I definitely struggle with this for sure. I feel like professionals who talk about phobias always say that phobias stem from a traumatic event that happened when you were young. I cannot tell you what my traumatic event was. I don't think I had one personally, but I know from a very young age I definitely had trouble getting shots, going to the doctor, and passing out or getting really lightheaded when I'd be in school and they teach us anything about blood or shots and things like that. Every time I say the word shots, I keep on thinking of like taking a tequila shot, but I'm talking about vaccines. By the way, guys, I support vaccines, okay? I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just wish that I was more okay getting them myself. If you guys want to watch the first version of this video that I made a few years ago, you can go watch that, but everything I said in that video is essentially what I'm going to say in this video. It's just kind of like a newer version of it. So yeah, I've struggled with this my whole life. I have memories of being in 6th grade, and the teacher put on a movie where a man was attacked by a bear. It was a reenactment of him having blood on him, and I almost passed out, and she had to roll me down to the nurse's office in her chair. There's so many other memories like that, guys, that I can't even tell you all of them. There was one time in high school when I was in I think it was a biology class, and I walked into the class and I looked on the screen, and I knew that day what we were learning about, and it would be the cardiovascular system, and I should have just told the teacher that I literally cannot listen to you talk about this, but of course I didn't. I thought to myself, I can get through this, and I couldn't. So that led to me basically fully almost passing out in the hallway, and my friend like came out screaming, and it was a whole fiasco, and then the nurse came to get me, and she rolled me down to her office in a wheelchair. If you don't know and you've never passed out before, it is a strange feeling. It's not a fun feeling at all. And I will say I've never fully gone unconscious or blacked out. I have a pretty strong memory of every time I've gotten close to passing out, and I know I've never fully like passed out. If you fully have passed out before, then I really feel bad for you, because that is something I'm very thankful I don't have to deal with, or never have had to deal with. Another thing I'm going to say is that this phobia really affects me when it comes to going to doctors, but not dentists. So I'm thankful for that. I don't have a fear of the dentist yet. I've never passed out at the dentist office, and I'm not afraid of it, so that's good. So what I am going to talk about in this video is something that happened to me last March when I went to the eye doctor for the first time. So yeah, if you also have a fear of eyeballs, you might not want to listen to this part of the video either, because apparently I can't deal with the eye doctor now. There's not even needles involved at the eye doctor. So about a year ago I started getting migraines, not very often, just every few months, and they were like ocular migraines, and I'm like, well, maybe just to be sure I should go to the eye doctor, because I literally, guys, I've never been to the eye doctor before, and I'm almost 25. So I went to the eye doctor, thought it was going to be a great time. It wasn't. Got in there, I was fine, I wasn't nervous at all. The person who came in before my doctor was this nice lady, and she got me all set up, and she put eye drops in my eyes. They were the numbing drops first, and then the dilation drops, and then she put this thing up against my head and started talking to me about my life, and I was fine 1 second, and then she like put a bar. If you guys have been to the eye doctor, you probably know what I'm talking about. The bar touched my eye, I think, and after the bar touched my eye, I probably was holding my breath. That's probably the reason why I ended up passing out. I don't know what happened. I just know that 1 second I was talking to her about what I do for a living, and the next second I was like, ma'am, I'm gonna pass out. And it's so funny, every time this happens, I tell them, and they're like, oh my gosh, okay, and they always freak out. And so I told her to lean my chair back, and she did. She got me water. She was really nice. I was sweating. I think about 5 minutes went by. It was a little awkward because I think she stayed in the room with me. I thought I was gonna be okay, so I told her, okay, I'm ready, you know, for you to sit me back up again, and she did, but I think she sat me back up a little too fast because I started to get lightheaded very quickly again, and I had to have her put the chair back down. Telling these stories always makes me feel sort of embarrassed because it's an eye doctor appointment. Like, I don't know why this happened, and I literally had no control over it. It was so strange. And she told me to make me feel better. She's like, oh, really large men do this all the time. They pass out. You wouldn't believe it. We always have men come in here and pass out when they get their eyeballs touched. And I was like, cool. That's actually something that a lot of people have said to me before in that situation to make me feel better. And it kind of does, I guess, just to know that there's grown men out there who also have this issue, I guess. But yeah, there's a lot of people out there who have this. So I was sat back up the second time. So she sat me back down, like laid me back down, and then eventually it was okay. But what was so funny is she only dilated one of my eyes, and then the doctor came in, and the whole experience was just all over the place. It was okay because my eyes ended up being healthy, apparently. I learned that, but I won't be going back to the eye doctor anytime soon because now I know that I have the possibility of passing out when I go there again. So just another fear to add to the list. So yeah, that happened last year, and then this is a new one, guys. I don't think this had ever happened to me before I did my last video back in 2015. I don't think I've ever had this issue. And then I started to go to a doctor during college. Finally found like an OBGYN to go to because I don't have a primary care doctor still to this day. Fun fact, that's something I need to figure out. But I do have an OBGYN, so I go to her, and I don't actually have any issues with that kind of appointment. I'm perfectly fine. The only thing that I have dealt with that I'm gonna talk about is before the doctor comes in, when the nurse does all your like vitals. He or she weighs you and measures you and checks your temperature, whatever, but they also check your blood pressure. You know, the cuff that goes around your arm and tightens. So yeah, a few years ago, I just remember going to a random appointment. It might have actually just been a like checkup at my health center on my college campus, but they took my blood pressure, which, if you know, doesn't involve needles or anything. And I almost passed out just because they took my blood pressure. And I think it has to do with me being able to feel my pulse. Definitely does. So ever since that first time that it happened, it's happened a few times since, including last month when I was sick and it went to urgent care, and the guy took my blood pressure, and I said I'm gonna pass out. So he had to lean the chair back, but it leaned back very slowly, so it was a really awkward situation. I don't have a primary care doctor. I haven't gotten vaccinated in a few years, I think actually since before 2015, and all I know is I got 4 shots, so that was you know, over 5 years ago now. I'm ashamed to say that, but I just I don't go to the doctor. I avoid the doctor, and I also avoid blood tests. I haven't had one of those in a few years either, and that's where I'm at. It's not good. I'm not encouraging you to not go to the doctor by making this video. I'm just telling you that I don't go to the doctor, and I probably should. I not only wanted to make this video to tell the funny story and, you know, talk about how I essentially still have a blood phobia and I haven't gotten over it, but to ask you guys that if you have the same issue as me and you have gotten over it, or you think you have, let me know down below what you've done to fix yourself. I guess fix yourself, I don't know. I know I need to see a therapist, not only for this issue but for other things too. I think everyone should have a therapist. I still haven't done that either, and I think getting professional help is probably the next step for me, because really this is something that is deep seated into my head somewhere, and I need to just find ways to cope with it and move forward, especially now that it's affected my willingness to go to a doctor. Part of it is just procrastination and laziness, but the other part is definitely the fear factor. Joe Rogan. The other thing I wanted to talk about is something a little bit funny, and that is things that people say to me because I have this issue. The number one thing I get relates to when I will go get shots or talk about how I pass out when I get shots, and people will just be like, oh, don't look at it. Do you really think I'm looking at the needle going into my arm, or when I'm getting a blood test, do you really think I'm going to watch that happen when I have this fear? No, I would never. So no, I'm not looking at the needle going into my arm. That's not why I pass out. This thing that I have, this issue, all starts in my head, and it all kind of stems from anxiety as a whole. I have probably somewhat of a white coat syndrome. I think white coat syndrome is just when you are afraid of going to the doctor, but I'm not actually sure. And so the anxiety starts from the moment I walk into the office, and then it kind of goes downhill from there most of the time. What's kind of funny is I've definitely heard people say that they have phobias like this and they like to watch the needle go in, and that's helped them. But I know that's not something that would help me personally. That's just not going to be my solution. One thing that I do is I'll sometimes ask like a medical professional, will I ever get over this? Do you think I'll ever grow out of it? A lot of people will tell me, yes, you'll get over it when you have a baby. My answer to that is maybe. If I do get pregnant someday and I have to start getting poked by needles every month, which I know is a thing when you get pregnant, that could get me over this fear a little bit, but I think it actually might be worse initially, because I'll have more anxiety going into these appointments, since I've essentially set myself up for failure because I never go to the doctor. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna help. I think it might worsen this whole thing. That's my fear right now. But if you guys maybe are a little bit older than me and you have had the same issue as me, and then you had a child, if you're a woman, did it help you get over it? Or maybe if you got diagnosed with a medical condition and have to get stuck by needles all the time, do you still pass out when you get stuck by needles? Let me know below. My boyfriend actually has Crohn's disease, and he is so used to getting stuck by needles now. I just try to put myself in his shoes, and I cannot imagine myself dealing with what he has had to deal with. But I know that if you do end up having like an illness and you are in the hospital all the time, I'm sure that does help you just end up getting used to being poked and prodded and all of the medical stuff, you know? I imagine that it would help you get over that, but yeah, I haven't dealt with anything like that, so hopefully I don't have to. But in a lot of ways I kind of like think that maybe I need something like that to happen to me so I can get over this. I think I will hopefully seek out professional help before something like that happens to me, or before I have a baby someday or whatever. Or even I've had people tell me, oh, you're never going to be able to have kids. Yeah, I know. Honestly, I've thought about it. I've thought about just adopting, because I don't ever want to go through having to deal with a bunch of medical stuff when I'm pregnant. I don't. Maybe I'm still too immature to even think about that part of my life, but that's where I'm at right now. It's a huge fear of mine. One last thing I wanted to talk about was I still get comments on my last video, and people are like, well, what about your period? And the answer is I've never struggled with getting lightheaded or anything like that because of my period. Seeing my own blood in that form doesn't bother me. Seeing my own blood in the form of, you know, getting a paper cut or scraping my knee or getting injured, that does affect me. I used to pass out or get close to passing out in high school when I would get a paper cut. That's how bad this is. Thankfully, in the past few years, I haven't had any injuries that have resulted in blood, so that's good. But yeah, my period is something I don't have to really worry about. It just doesn't bother me. I don't know why. Other people's blood bothers me. People talking about blood bothers me. Seeing blood on TV sometimes bothers me. It just depends on the context. If it's a medical situation and there's blood, it might affect me. If it's a gory, scary movie, it's probably not going to trigger me. It's just so, like I said, very complex. This video has been all over the place, and I hope that it has been relatively informing and, I guess, entertaining for you to watch. But yeah, Basically, guys, if you struggle with a blood phobia or fear of needles, or you've ever passed out, you know, in situations at the doctor and things like that, let me know down below. We're gonna get through this together. It's something that I definitely want to try to figure out and get over in the next 5 years of my life. You know, before I turn 30, that's my goal, is to stop being afraid of going to the doctor and to get over this fear. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. I'll see you in my next one. Thank you for watching, and have a great day. Stay strong, kiddos.